Good morning, good day, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the online international workshop on circular economy, sustainable recovery from COVID-19, organized by the Environment Bureau, Tokyo Metropolitan Government. Before we get started, we'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. First, please select the language channel. There is English channel and Japanese channel. This workshop will be conducted in English through English channel with simultaneous translation in Japanese channel. Please refrain from broadcasting the contents on personal live stream channel or SNS. If you have any questions during the workshop, please type them into the Q&A box in your Zoom control panel. Attention to everyone. The moderator may bring them up after each session or at the end of the workshop during Q&A session. Last but not least, please fill in the simple online survey at the end of the workshop. The link to the survey will be notified to you after leaving the room. Now that all the participants have joined, we would like to pass on to today's moderator, Mr. Furusawa from Tokyo Metropolitan Government. Mr. Furusawa, please start.
Okay, shall we get started? Okay. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening. Thank you for joining us today. I would like to welcome you all to the online workshop on a circular economy and sustainable recovery from COVID-19. Thank you for taking your time out of your very busy schedules to join us today. Especially, thank you, Christian, from so early in the morning. Okay, I am Yasuo Furusawa. I'm from the Tokyo Metropolitan Government, and I'll be facilitating today's Zoom call. Now, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you. We hope you will find the program we have lined up for you to be fruitful and engaging. Almost 1 year has passed since the novel coronavirus first reported. The number of reported cases is reaching 70 million now. I offer my deepest condolences to the victims of the virus in participating cities and all over the world. We are here today to talk about how city government and societies will promote the circular economy in terms of sustainable recovery or green recovery from COVID-19. We would like to share important suggestions and experiences with each other, and we affirm the key points in order to prepare the next stage. Firstly, today, let me introduce today's program. Is it okay? Okay, the Christian Kaufholz, they're going to give us lectures. And after that, some city members will report their policies from Bangkok City, Singapore, and Tomsk and Tokyo. Let me first, before we start this workshop, let me introduce today's participating cities: Bangkok City, Hong Kong, Istanbul, Jakarta, and Melbourne, Kaufholz, Singapore, Tomsk, Turku, and Yangon. And also from Japan, Yokohama City, Hachioji City, and Tokyo 23 City, and Liusen Waste Joint Authority, and also Tokyo Metropolitan Government. So, is it okay? Okay. So let's start the program. At first, Professor Yukari Takamura from Tokyo University will give us a lecture. Professor?
Thank you very much for the opportunity given me to speak to the representative of the local government and of the various country and the expert from the World Economic Forum and others and equally as well. So I briefly introduced that the circular economy and the COVID era. Of course, with my experience, I focus on the current status of Japanese policy, and especially the focus on plastics. So I'm going to start with somehow the explaining a little bit the circular economy. It's quite a basic, and then I think I show the Japanese move in line with the circular economy. I think in my sense, it's quite new. And new from the conventional approach or toward waste management in Japan. So the last point is that I'm a little bit talk about the policy impact or policy transformation in the COVID era in the field of waste management, especially plastics. But I refer to the climate change policy approach for addressing climate change. So I frankly, say that this figure come from the Canadian Ontario government of Canada, but I think it's really well, formulated to show that how the circular economy is different from the conventional approach. Usual approach to the waste management, if I may. Rather the aligner, we make product and the use product and they dispose the product, which is waste. But now we try to change this linear approach process to circular economy. You can see that we try to reduce the input of the material and this, economic processes. And by doing the better design of product and improve the production process, and of course the distribution process as well, we try to reduce the environmental impact and the use of the material. And after consumer use, of course, this some product become waste. But we try to, in this circular economy, we maximize, reuse and repair, recycle, and that we try to reduce at maximum the waste generation, so that the impact should be minimalized, and also the waste management also minimalized. But for doing so, for make this process the work, of course, the government leadership and the framework is very much important. And also, if you look at here, the design and production process and distribution process is also at stake. Then the producer and the distributor is also very important work and responsibility in this circular economy. And to make the waste, the product to be abundant, to be recycled and reused, I think a consumer needs some collaboration with the producer and distributor, and possibly with the local government. So this circular economy, I think what I said is actually summarized here. We could say that the economy in which all stakeholders strive to minimize the use of raw material and to make the useful life of material, and to minimize waste generated at the end of life of product and packaging. But it's of course to protect the environment, but also which they help business stay competitive, because they could reduce as much as possible the use of raw material, which actually make the economy more, let's say, cheaper, if I may, less expensive, and also to make this process work. Sometimes we need innovation. Then the circular economy itself has a potential to drive in the production and the product innovation. So that is, I think, the key point of circular economy and its, say, benefit. So that's what I actually talk about. So look at the Japanese waste management law and policy. I think it's quite, it's dated from quite older time. In 1971, we had the current Waste Management Public Cleansing Law Act. But we have some kind of innovation in 2000. We have now the fundamental law of establish a sound, the material cycle society. But if you look at three pillars of this, the sound material cycle society, the product design or production process is not really, the inside of the scope. Priority rather focus on the, of course, priority, rests on the minimizing waste generation, which covers such, the product design and production process. But still, under Japanese, this fundamental law, in my sense, the focus is rather on the waste management and recycling. So this trend actually changing with the plastic waste. I think I don't need to repeat that the plastic production is quite, since 1915, growth in production and consumption continue. And currently the world produces more than 400 million tons of plastic every year. I think this, projection come from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, but if the growth in plastic production continue at the current rate, by 2050, the plastic industry may account for 20% of world total oil consumption, which means that it is a link with climate change issue. Of course, the production is one of the center of production is Asia, especially Northeast Asia. And waste generation is unfortunately, of course, the increase, but half of appearing to come from Asia again. So the plastic waste plastic packaging waste generation, if we look at, of course, Japan, for instance, is not as a country, it's not the largest. But if we look at the per capita generation of plastic packaging waste, Japan is the second after the United States. So this is the current flow of the plastic in Japan. I think I say that the current waste management framework of the current legislation in Japan is rather focused on the recycling and the use and how to make better waste management is the key. Instead of the focusing on the product design and production process. Another, maybe even though focusing on the waste management, one of the challenge for us is that we actually burn a lot of waste, plastic waste. If you look at here, of course, we say that quite a high rate of the recycling, but quite a significant part go to incineration to make thermal recovery. So we are now preparing to prepare for the specific measure to tackle plastic waste. I think there is some milestone of the goal to be achieved around 2030 here, but what I like to say is that now maybe for the first time in the Japanese waste management law history, we are focused on the production design and production of product. We are now elaborating new, possibly comprehensive legislation on plastic. One of the pillars should be the elaboration of establishing the guideline for design and production in plastic product. Maybe for the remaining part, I think I like to dedicate for the current situation in the COVID-19 and the impact of the waste management. Of course, you know that, for instance, European Union advocates that the green recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic situation. And also the United Nations, for instance, say that the building back better. And also World Economic Forum now has a very clear message by advocating the Great Reset. Through the COVID-19, the social our society actually discovered a clear demand for green economy and society. One of the example is I think the plastic itself, because if we continue the same pace of production, I actually have shown the projection, but at the same time, if we continue to the same rate of the plastic consumption by 2050, unfortunately, in the ocean, we might have more plastic waste than the fish itself. So it's clearly not sustainable situation. We need a transformation of society and production and consumption pattern to make our society more sustainable, because we know that science warns that the current pandemic, of course, outside of this current pandemic, but we see a lot of the virus emergence since the beginning of the previous century. I mean from the 20th century. This rate of emergence of viruses, which might be transmitted to human, the rate of this emergence is accelerated. According to the scientists, it's due to the accelerating economic environmental degradation, possibly ecosystem degradation or climate change. By all means, it is due to our human activity and how to we are not, successfully, protect the environment and ecosystem. So to avoid a new emergence risk of the pandemic, I think, we have to really make our economy more greener and more sustainable. So that is one of the reasons why that the, many advocate that more sustainable recovery. Of course, we do not need to, mention that the climate change issue, so that if we continue the same pattern of the greenhouse gas emission, we could not reach the decarbonized society. So during this, the COVID-19, we had then clear preference by society on the, for instance, a new value such as the health, life, and the environment. But unfortunate event is that to try to control this pandemic, our economy and society are very much affected, especially the two make our economy or more greener, we need more investment. But unfortunately, 2020 growth projection is except China. We have a minus projection of growth. Since 2014, we see quite a high increase of the clean energy investment, but unfortunately, energy investment itself very much affected, and now we see some slight decline. But luckily, out of the clean total energy investment, clean energy investment share is slightly, increased. The same thing happened with the EV and the mobility system. Global sale of the, EV and its share is quite slightly increased, but while the total vehicle sale is somehow declined. So that the total investment and the sale activity is very much impacted, but the current investment and sell behavior of market is some trend or preference for the cleaner one. That is, I think, one of the trend. But still, we need more investment, so that how to encourage the private investment and financial flow, and possibly by making use of public fund. So many countries take a recovery plan. I see Japan is actually the second budgetary scale after the United States, but its recovery plan is not totally green. It's at the time of this is the beginning of October, maybe after the 2050 carbon neutral declaration by Prime Minister, maybe some series of climate recovery plan is added. Maybe this evaluation might change. But one of the problem is that the most of developing countries' green recovery plan is not evaluated as so much greener, so that the scale of budget for recovery is also not similar volume as the developed country. So that how to then raise how to make the green recovery in developing country, including climate change, and also here the circular economy is one of the challenge at international level. This is a little bit, it's come from the Vivid Economics. It's a think tank based on the United Kingdom, but there are some waste recovery plan which are evaluated green, like Canada and Korea. I think some circular economy measure are included in the recovery plan of these countries. So last point that I like just to hear the folk mention that even in the COVID-19 situation, pandemic situation, climate change action is advancing, especially by the company and the investors. I see the clear change of shift in policy approach, especially addressing climate change. First point is that now the international society, advocate clear decarbonization goal to be shared by business and investors. That is actually one of the law of the Paris Agreement. And this climate, related risk consideration backed by the Paris decarbonization goal is now internalized and mainstreamed in the business strategy and decision making. First is through the climate-related financial disclosure, which means that the investor requests the company as a target of investment, to disclose how much their business are impacted if the society go toward decarbonized society. So the business have to analyze and create a strategy and disclose these information of the responsibility of the board of companies. Investors now look at these information and try to do the ESG investing, especially E means that, as you know, that the environment, and one of the key pillar of environmental investment is climate change. And also investors try to convince the company to make management of emission over supply chain and value chain of company. So with this policy approach, now the company, as I said, that they internalize climate-related risk and its business strategy, and not only some kind of social contribution, social responsibility activity, but also they have to show to how they address climate risk in their business strategy. It's quite important because it's related to evaluation by the capital market and supply chain, downstream of supply chain companies. So the reason why I introduce here this policy approach shift about the climate change is that now this policy approach is split into other issues, starting with the plastic issue and circular economy. And this year, again, not only circular economy, but also nature impact also is now the United Nations Environmental Program and other organizations try to start it to disclose nature-related information or risk of company. They try to elaborate guidelines for disclosure. So first, climate, and now coming to plastic and circular economy, and then now the nature-related risk. Actually, investor has a clear interest in circular economy. That's come from the Morgan Stanley data. I think it was presented in the World Economy Forum this year. But the climate change is, of course, the first, but you can see that the second, plastic, and the circular economy, and totally they are maybe the first among these, the interest of the individual investor here, the big asset owner investors. So I think now you have a chance to make use of such a policy shift, because now investors are also keen in the change the system or more greener, here the more circular economy. So that I think of course during the COVID-19 you have a lot of difficulty in tackling waste management, but now you have still the good window for you to advance your waste management and circular economy policy. So that's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you very much. I could understand more clearly about the key points of circular economy and green recovery and the famous Great Reset. Plastic, I think plastic is a big problem in every participating cities these days. Professor, I know you are a very busy person, but could you stay to the end of this workshop?
Yes, of course. I'm looking forward to your presentation of a presenter.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So let's move on to the next lecture. Let me introduce Mr. Christian Kaufholz from World Economic Forum. He is a platform curator, Future of Consumption, World Economic Forum, and he is now in New York City. It's 4 o'clock or 4 or 5 o'clock in New York City. Thank you from so early in the morning. Christian, could you start your presentation?
Thank you very much. I will just share my screen. Are you able to see it?
Yes, it's
great.
Clear.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for organizing the workshop and Furusawa-san for inviting me to speak. It's great to be here with you, although it's so early in New York. It's a pleasure. I work for the World Economic Forum and specifically work on circular economy and plastics related sustainable consumption related topics and projects. And so the role of cities, the role of the Asia region, the role of policy making, of innovation, the things I think this community deals with every day is very, very close to our heart and very important for advancing the types of agendas and projects that we are working on. And Takamura-san, thank you very much for the presentation, very interesting. And as she mentioned, the World Economic Forum's role currently in advancing what we call the Great Reset, and the idea of using the current COVID and related socioeconomic difficulties to rethink how we approach certain big topics and challenges, including indeed how we consume and produce, and how we encourage, enable, discuss new models of consumption and production that are more sustainable. So I want to just use the time today to talk a little bit about how we think about collaboration in this space, and how we look specifically at that circular economy and plastics space. But within that, and in the spirit of sort of resetting and rethinking how we consume and produce, focus on a specific sub-piece of the circular economy, which was also mentioned in the previous presentation, the reuse and new sort of new business model conversation, meaning how do we not just deal better, treat better the waste, manage better the waste that we generate, but how do we reduce from the outset the amount of waste we generate in the first place. So, and I'll also then finish by speaking a little bit about specifically the role of cities and how we work with cities on some of those topics. So very much looking forward also to engaging with as many of you as possible in the future. Just a bit of context, the World Economic Forum convenes governments, businesses, civil society, academia, youth leaders, activists, all kinds of stakeholders to discuss challenges across a very broad range of societal issues. On the plastics front, I want to highlight two that I'm personally involved in: the Global Plastic Action Partnership, which is really our flagship umbrella program for this agenda that we're talking about here. The vision to end plastic pollution by being a platform for private-public collaboration, and build very specific action plans, help governments and businesses deliver on commitments to end plastic waste. We're in many countries working with governments, cities, and really believe that by bringing together the different parts of the ecosystem that we can advance this agenda. A more specific piece of that is what we call the Consumers Beyond Disposability Initiative, where also the Tokyo Metropolitan Government is contributing in a very valuable way, and we're very grateful for that. This project focuses more specifically on the questions how we enable alternatives to single use. So it's a big piece of what we do on our plastics agenda and circular economy agenda. And the project is building communities and guidelines for advancing reuse solutions specifically. So that's just a bit of context, and I think to just reiterate the challenge we face, it's really the unsustainable nature of how we produce and consume, and the limits we're hitting now, the boundary conditions we're hitting with the limits of recycling and waste management in general. And I think, of course, cities are at the forefront of feeling the effects of waste, not just the physical waste, but its impact on climate, its impact on quality of life, and many of the related issues. So how do we rethink how we produce, distribute, consume to prevent more waste in the first place? So that's where I'm going to focus the remainder of the presentation. When we think about the waste crisis globally or locally, in simplified terms, it's really the waste crisis is the gap between the waste we generate and the waste we are able to manage. And that gap, of course, has been growing very rapidly. And we have focused for many decades on the treatment piece, how we better manage the waste, and of course have been able to improve that piece a lot through new technology, infrastructure, investment. But given the limits, the question is increasingly, how do we prevent waste? And so this gap, that is the crisis, can be addressed by increasing management, but it can also be addressed by decreasing the waste generated. And the question is how we can think about innovative solutions, collaborations that help us to do that as well. I make an analogy, a comparison with the healthcare crisis, because I think it's more familiar in the context of healthcare. We have a global healthcare crisis, and in many cases, national healthcare crisis. And the reason is that disease treatment, while we're getting better at it, is not sufficient, and we have not paid enough attention to disease prevention. And so in the waste space, similarly, we have that imbalance. And what we're trying to do with the Global Plastic Action Partnership with Consumers Beyond Disposability at the forum is to think through how we can address the waste crisis by balancing waste management or treatment approaches with waste prevention approaches. One key, there's many ways to prevent waste from being generated, not least to consume less, period. It's not often talked about, but it's an important part how we, in many cases, can just reduce consumption. But of course, consumption is an important economic driver. It's an important part of life. It's an important part for the quality of life, and how we consume can also be changed. So without having to consume less, in many cases, we can consume better. And reuse of specifically what we focus on in this agenda is the packaging material, because it's such a big portion of the waste generation. how can we think more about reuse of packaging, reusable packaging solutions? And so there is a lot of innovation happening in many pockets around the world in reusable packaging innovation. And they reach from new retail platforms with durable packaging to packaging as a service models, bulk dispensing and refill systems, and rethinking products completely to reduce or eliminate, in some cases, packaging. And so how do we tap into that innovation, and what can we do to strengthen that reuse cycle? And we think about sort of the circular economy, and I like the Canadian circle that Takamura-san just shared as well. We can think about the bigger circle of how materials flow from purchase and consumption to disposal, waste management, and transformation back into production in terms of the broader recycling loop. But we can also think of it as in addition to that, creating very tight loops of reuse, where we skip the broader waste management cycle by creating a reuse cycle of the packaging for 10 times, 100 times, 500 times before a container reaches the end of life and has to be recycled. And so this is what, you know, we mean by enabling the reuse cycle. Reuse has, in the COVID context, experienced setbacks, not least the fact, especially in the food space, that there have been concerns, often not scientifically founded at all, that packaging is not safe if it's reused and cleaned. So there have been setbacks in terms of consumer perception and business practices when it comes to reusable packaging. But there are also many opportunities, not least the growth and concentration of closed loop logistics models related to e-commerce, because the systems that push our products into the homes around the world, the same infrastructure and smart platforms can be leveraged to pull back packaging. And that is a huge opportunity for reusable packaging as a service models. And we see a lot of experimentation. And of course, the scarcity of critical supplies also and resources is more and more supporting a reuse approach, and that has been exacerbated by the COVID crisis. Just one quick example of what reuse innovation can look like. At the forum, we incubated a new alliance that also the Tokyo government is partnering with on some projects, which is called the Loop Alliance, and it's an innovative e-commerce platform that provides consumers with their branded products in a reusable packaging format to their homes. And a lot of the brands, big brands and retailers, are participating in this pilot. It's a very exciting project. We're very very interested to see how consumers react, what the uptake is, what the learnings are, everything related to cleaning and sanitation of containers, to reverse logistics challenges, and many others. And so this is a pilot that's currently running in the US, France, and the UK. And I know that there are plans to bring it to Japan and many other markets as well. Let me turn a little bit to the role of cities in particular in this reuse agenda. And when we think about the burden of the waste management challenge that cities face, it's a very significant one financially. but as mentioned before, also in terms of its effects on quality of life, on the long-term sustainability of a city's operations, and delivering its climate and other sustainability targets. Its climate targets, the link between waste and climate is increasingly clear and increasingly at the forefront of the policy world and other stakeholders. So from a city perspective, reuse is a way to reduce the burden by generating less waste, having to collect and manage less waste, but also to deliver on these wider commitments to create new innovation, growth and employment opportunities, because these systems need to be operated and implemented. And it's also a long-term strategy. How can, within their circular economy strategies, how can cities build a reuse strategy into their broader sustainability and circular economy strategy? So this is a big opportunity, and of course many cities are currently drawing up or updating their circular economy strategies. And our ambition at the forum with all the stakeholders we work with that are committed to the reuse agenda, we're very keen to have cities join this effort and think through, help the forum's communities think through how these reuse solutions can be incorporated directly into circular economy strategies at the city level. I talk about cities, but it's not only that cities can benefit from reuse solutions. I'm also going to make the case that reuse itself will depend on cities to be really big scaled. So in other words, cities also benefit, cities benefit from reuse, and reuse benefits from cities. And why are cities so important to enable reuse? The first reason is that they have very big markets and very concentrated markets. I mean, the big urban areas are by themselves at such a scale that new reuse models that are implemented there can have a minimum scale for viability. Because as you can imagine, reuse is not an efficient operational model to implement at a low scale when you need to think about reverse logistics, cleaning, the production of durable containers, consumer behavior. You need a certain scale for this to start making sense economically, and also, frankly, environmentally. It's only sustainable at a certain minimum scale, because otherwise the inefficiencies are too great. Even for transport and shipping reusable containers around to have them cleaned and refilled. So the first thing is the scale and the concentrated nature of that scale, which leads to the second point. Reuse solutions are local by nature, because you need in very close proximity the production, distribution, collection, well, the market for consumption, but then also the collection, cleaning, and reverse logistics back to the refiller. You need all of these solution providers in great proximity to make these models viable, and cities provide that. The next reason is that cities are really living labs for innovation, and the pilots needed, the learnings, the steep learning curve in enabling these models are something that are very hard to, that's something very hard to test at a national level in a very pragmatic and on the ground way, and cities can provide that learning platform. And finally, of course, a lot of new trends, not least the consumer trends, start in urban areas. Cultural innovations, if you will, behavioral innovations often or usually start in urban areas as cultural centers. And so when we think about transforming the way we live, the way we behave, our value system, the urban centers are key for that more, let's say, social or cultural shift. So I will end with sort of the concrete piece here, where we're very excited and would love to engage with many of the cities, such as we're already doing with Tokyo and others on this agenda. We are currently working on a city playbook on reuse. So this is a toolkit to really support cities in developing and implementing reuse strategies. And, you know, we're looking at, in this context, very specifically the policy instruments that can be used to enable reuse, whether that is taxing or making more expensive the single-use alternatives, whether that is giving other incentives to reuse providers or subsidies or other policy instruments to that effect. It's also looking at infrastructure questions around logistics and cleaning in particular, but also broader soft infrastructure around data systems and open data systems to run reuse systems at a city level, and the role of the city government in that process. Looking at procurement, of course, because the city governments themselves are can be major anchor customers for reuse solutions through their own operations. Looking at how cities can engage with the private sector to pilot and test some of those solutions. And finally, you know, the broader linkages to your environmental agendas, your public health agendas, and your social equity agendas, because obviously this is not happening in a vacuum, but very much linked to those broader objectives. So we are looking forward to actually launching these new guidelines, the City Playbook, in 2021. Ideally at our World Economic Forum annual meeting, which is known as Davos, but you may have read we're actually hosting the 2021 annual meeting in Singapore. So another opportunity, I think, to bring this conversation to Asia, or to bring your experiences and leadership to this agenda. So I'd love to be in touch with many of you of how we can also involve you in that process. So thank you very much, and looking forward to the rest of the workshop.
Thank you very much, Christian. Thank you very much. World Economic Forum guidebook as a toolkit will be a great help for all of the participating cities. We are looking forward to the Davos meeting. And I think some people say reuse revolution these days. I think reuse revolution, it will be a big step to the circular economy. Thank you very much. Let's go on to the next program. We are going to have presentations from 4 cities. The first speaker is Ms. Natitip Jenson-Prasson from Bangkok City. Hello, Natitip. Are you okay?
Yes, okay. Can you hear me?
Nice to see you. Everybody in your government is safe and healthy?
Yeah. Everyone is okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, but the time is limited. So please present your in 8 minutes, please. Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Furukawa-san. Good morning and good afternoon, all the participants. Today, I'm representative from Bangkok Metropolitan Administration. I would like to talk about the circular economy and green recovery in Bangkok, especially after the pandemic of COVID-19. Okay, next slide, please. This is my content of this is the content of my presentations. First of all, I would like to talk about the solid waste management in Bangkok after the COVID-19, and also now we have a new facilities for handle the waste management, and the concept of circular economy is already combined in the new facility. And the last topic of my presentation is about the public-private partnership in circular economy and green recovery. Yes, next slide, please. Okay, next. In Thailand, the pandemic of COVID-19 happened since 23rd of March until end of May. And when we look at about proportion of waste composition will change. For the normal situation, we found that the organic waste, especially the food waste, is nearly 50%. But at the COVID-19 situation pandemic, the food waste is decreased to the nearly 40%. On the other hand, the proportion of the plastic and papers is increasing from 27% to 42%. Why? What happened? Because at that time in Thailand tried to announce about the social distancing and change the behavior and also the personal hygiene protection. The food waste packaging is also increasing so much at that time. Okay, next slide, please. For the waste management disposal, we will try to change the linear scheme from the waste collection, transportation, and disposal to the linear, from the linear scheme to the circular economy scheme. We try to introduce the facility to make the waste to energy in terms of incineration around last 3 years. But for this year, in May of this year, we established the new facilities like the mechanical biological treatment. You can see in the below of the presentation, allow 800 tons per day. I will talk about this facility because the facility has the concept of circular economy, waste to energy, and also for the sustainable waste management. Okay, next slide. After Bangkok introduced the new facility like the MBT, the percentage of waste is reduction, waste to landfill site is reduction from 80% to 72%. Okay. I would like to introduce about the MBT or mechanical biological treatment plan or the new facilities of Bangkok. The concept of mechanical biological treatment plant. Okay, next slide. Sorry, next slide. Okay, the concept of MBT treatment program, treatment project. We have the major target to make the waste to the energy in terms of like clean energy. First of all, we will try to separate or remove the waste that have the value for make the RDF as much as possible in the first phase or in the pre-treatment step. And after that, we will collect the organic waste and produce them to make the anaerobic digestion, to make the biogas and convert the biogas to generate the electricity and also sell the electricity to the e-gas. After the remaining of the project to go to landfill site is very, very low. Okay, next please. For the waste flow process of MBT, the waste input around 800 tons per day. More than 68% will be RDF. As you know, At the first phase, we can remove the RDF, and the second phase, after sorting or after some a little bit digestion, is also we have another type of RDF. For the RDF, we have totally 542 tons per day, is nearly 68%. All of them will come to the waste to energy like a fuel substitutional for the factory, cement factory. And at this phase, we also separate the metals recycles, is nearly 10 tons per day. After two proportion remove that, the organic will be come to the anaerobic digestion and also make the biogas and generate the electricity. For this diagram and for this the facility, we found that we can remove all of waste to energy to make the RDF, and also we remain the waste to landfill site only 10 tons per day, or approximately 1.4% of input waste. Okay, next please. This picture shows the kind of RDF. One is mean that the oversize of RDF we separate at first phase, and RDF2 we separate after they go to the digester and press screw to remove the solid proportion and liquid proportion separator. Okay, next please. For the circular economy in terms of public-private partnership, as you know, in after COVID-19 pandemic, the lifestyle of people in Bangkok will be changed, especially for the dining, meeting, the social distancing, and also personal hygiene protection was be announced. In Thailand, it's the same situation. Okay, next slide. At the school level, this project is happened or this established before COVID-19. The project of the change the plastic bag from the milk container to the cotton milk containers is since year 2018. At that time, we can remove or reduce the plastic milk containers reduction around 1,200 tons per year. And for the last year, we can collect the cotton milk containers, approximately 77 tons, to make the new products like a student dress, clean loop, something like this. Okay, the next slide, please. Is show the product that collect the cotton milk container to make the new product for the we try to encourage the student for understanding the circular economy and the clean or environmentally friendly products. Okay, next slide, please. And for the city level, as I told you, the project of send plastic bag then occur when the COVID-19 pandemic in Bangkok or in Thailand. This project launched by the Thailand Responsible Business Network is a partnership, private partnership. They will setting up the project because they know that at the time of the COVID-19 pandemic, in many cases in Bangkok around May of this year, many people, or almost people could not go out or dining outside the house, the home, the family. The food delivery or food company grows so much, and the use of plastic food packaging was be thrown in municipal solid waste. So the private company want to deal with the projects. They will set the Saint Plastic Home project. They're setting up the target area at the Sukhumvit Road, and they set up the plastic drop point, around 10 plastic drop point in Sukhumvit Road, mostly in the department store or the big hotels, to collect the plastic, especially for the food packaging plastic or plastic bag. And they try to set up the program after people consume the food and remain the plastic packaging. People should be clean up the food scrap, and after that they will collect and go to the drop point and throw the clean plastic in the drop point. The people will get the point, like the score or the point to discount when they buy some products in the department store. And the company will collect the plastic from the drop point to make the recycle to the plastic pallet and bring the pallet to make a new product. At the concept of the project, they try to announce the people every 18 bottom pet can recycle to make 1 PPE for the medical staff, and they try to make the new product come to the market again. Okay, this all the concept, this launched by the public-private partnership. Okay, next slide, please.
Natitip, I'm sorry, but could you wrap up your presentation?
Okay, it's around two slides. Thank you. Okay, the 2 types of plastic that the project they receive is sketching plastic and hard plastic. As I told you, they also come to the circular economy and clean recovery to make the new product. Okay, next slide. After 5 months, the project can collect the plastic from the customer nearly 5 tons. Mostly it's a hard plastic, like the plastic packaging, plastic food packaging box, and around 15% is the plastic, like the soft plastic or the wrap film plastic bag, something like that. This case will show that in the serious situation, many sectors in my country try to solve the problems about the solid waste problem and also green problem, because all of them know that if they have a chance to make Bangkok and Thailand has the sustainable development, they can make all of them have the quality of life also. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Natitip-san. We could understand your collaboration with many stakeholders, and the MBT, that MBT facility is very interesting. That will be that kind of facilities are not so many in Asian countries. Very interesting. I think it's very interesting for many participating cities. Thank you very much. Thank you for your contribution.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Pulukawa-san.
Could you group? Oh, thank you. Next speaker is Ms. Mei-Ling Tan from Singapore. Hello, Mei-Ling.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Nice to see you again. Could you
Yes,
start?
nice to see you again.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi.
Could you?
Okay. Can you hear me? Is it good?
Yeah, it's very clear.
Okay. Thank you. So, good evening, everyone again. And thank you, TMG, for organizing this workshop. It's good to see some of the familiar faces here. So my name is Mei Ling again. I'm from the National Environment Agency in Singapore, and I will share with you our Zero Waste Master Plan, which outlines a Singapore effort in moving towards a circular economy. So if you look at this chart, so the rate of waste growth is one of the major concerns for waste management for Singapore. So the graph, if you can see, the increasing population and the GDP growth has increased the amount of waste disposed of by about 7-fold over the past 40 years. So besides this waste growth, the other concern we have is the land scarcity. So if you may be aware, our only landfill, Semakau landfill, is projected to only last until 2035. And we might have to identify a new offshore landfill every 30 to 35 years. And this will pose a huge challenge to us. So let's briefly look at what happens to the waste generated in Singapore each day. So this is based on 2019 figure. So each day there are about 20,000 tons of waste generated daily by both the consumer, commercial, residential, as well as the industrial premises. And a licensed waste collector actually send the waste and the recyclables to the various waste disposal, material recovery, and recycling facility. So we have about 58% of the waste that's sent for recycling. 39% is sent for incineration, which will reduce the volume further by 90%. And the remaining non-incinerable waste is sent to our only landfill. So to cope with the constant increase of waste over the year, we have to enhance our waste management system. So to do this, if you can see from the diagram, we have adopted 4 strategies. The first one is on minimization and prevention of waste as source through the promotion of efficient use of resources in production process, as well as the promotion of 3Rs and waste segregation as source in homes and businesses. Second is through recycling, where we maximize resource recovery from waste and educate the consumer and producer to adopt better recycling methods to sustain a clean environment. Third is through our waste treatment method of waste to energy, when we adopt innovative technology to maximize energy recovery, minimize ash as well as land use. And finally, to minimize waste to landfill, one of the areas we have looked into is to come up with alternative use for non-incinerables so as to maximize our landfill lifespan. So achieving our vision of a zero waste nation requires partnership with the people, public and private sector. So as such, our Zero Waste Master Plan was developed through a co-creation process. And through this master plan, we have set for ourselves ambitious target to extend our landfill lifespan beyond 2035 and to reduce the amount of waste per capita that is sent to the landfill by 30% by 2030. And this is on top of the 70% recycling rate that we have set for ourselves. We know that adopting a circular economy approach will enable us to meet this goal. So today, most of the economy function in a linear manner. We extract raw materials, consume them, and dispose of them as waste. So in contrast, a circular economy seeks to close our waste loop and use our resource for as long and as many times as we can. So similar to many other countries, we have framed our thinking of the circular economy along sustainable production, consumption, and managing waste as a resource sustainably. So if we can look at this slide, starting from the very beginning of the value chain on sustainable production, companies are adopting more sustainable design at product level. At system level, industrial symbiosis can be also applied to turn waste from one company into feedstock for another. Such arrangements are usually win-win, and it enables companies to reduce waste and maximize profits. On sustainable consumption, this is something that each and every one of us can contribute to through simple actions in our daily life. For example, through reducing unnecessary packaging and food waste. So together with our partners, we have launched several campaigns to educate the public and to reduce unnecessary waste. So at the other end of the value chain is the waste and resource management. So we need to view our waste as resource and extract as much treasure from it as possible. So in Singapore, we actually recycle 99% of our construction and demolition waste and turn them into new products such as recycled concrete aggregate. So you may be aware we've enacted our landmark Resource Sustainability Act to give legislative effects to new measures to address our key priority waste stream, which are packaging waste, including plastic, food waste, and e-waste. So it aims to close the loop for these three key waste streams. So if I could elaborate a bit more each of these in the subsequent slide. So for e-waste, we will implement an extended producer responsibility or EPR framework. This makes producer responsible for the end-of-life treatment of their products. We will start with the large producer of the 5 categories that's seen on the left of the slide, and this will... Okay. Yes, so I was talking about for packaging waste, the voluntary packaging agreement started in 2007. It aims to encourage companies to reduce packaging waste. So participating companies have accumulatively reduced about 54,000 tons of packaging waste, and this saved them 130 mil in packaging costs. So new regulations on reporting will be introduced and will require large producers of packaged product to report their packaging data and 3R plan. We also built on this to introduce an EPR framework to manage packaging waste, starting with the deposit refund scheme as the phase 1 of the EPR. So for food waste, we require large food generators to separate and treat their food waste. And from 2021, we also require developers who submit plans for their new commercial industrial premises to allocate space for on-site food waste treatment. And these premises will have to segregate and treat their food waste on site starting from 2024. So in a way, if we look through the various infrastructure transformation, we are also leading a multi-agency effort to develop environmental standards for the use of incineration bottom ash as building materials in non-structural application, such as road-based material, or aggregate in non-structural concrete known as new sand. So we are in the midst of having field trial to assess the environmental standards as well as to develop the various performance standards. So an IBA, which is incineration bottom ash treatment facility, will also be built to maximize resource recovery and reduce the waste residue that's sent to our landfill. So adopting the circular economy will allow us to create opportunities even for Singapore ourselves. For instance, local companies are venturing overseas and making good progress in providing high-tech food waste solutions. And to support our industry, we have set aside some funds, including a 45 mil closing the waste loop R&D fund. So far, we have 8 projects that have been awarded under this initiative that's worth about 20 million. And also invested 12.5 million to set up a research center that focuses on recycling e-waste. And we understand that they're working on many interesting solutions, such as to extract lithium and cobalt for batteries. And this concludes my presentation. So for more information, you can access the QR code in the slides to download the Zero Waste Master Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadine. Singapore closing the loop policy is a very great model for all of us, and especially around R&D support. That's a great policy, I think. Thank you very much. Thank you for your contribution.
Sorry for the internet connection just now. Thank you.
It's okay. Thank you very much. Okay, and participants, audience, if you have any questions, please use Q&A button and write it down in English or in Japanese. Okay, the next speaker is from Tomsk, Russia, Mr. Maxim Oskol from Tomsk State University. He's an expert from Tomsk State University. Could you start your presentation, Maxim?
Yes.
Okay, could you start?
Hello everyone, my name is Maxim Oskol. I represent Tomsk State University. First of all, on behalf of Tomsk region, let me thank Tokyo Metropolitan Government for organizing this seminar and inviting us. We appreciate greatly this opportunity to learn best practices from other cities. Let me tell briefly about experience of our region. And my theme is introduction of elements of circular economy in the field of waste management in the Tomsk region. The main principles of Russia's state policy in the field of waste management are defined by the strategy of the development of industrial treatment, recycling, and disposal of production and consumption waste for the period up to 2030 approved by the order of the government of the Russian Federation. And also the decree of the President of the Russian Federation on national development goals of the Russian Federation for the period up to 2030. Since 2019, a large-scale reform in the field of solid municipal waste management has been carried out in the Russian Federation. From 2022, a similar reform will be implemented with regard to the management of other class 1 and 2 waste. As a result of these reforms, the following target indicators must be achieved by 2030. A full sorting of 100% of waste, halving the amount of waste going to landfills, 86% of generated production and consumption waste must be processed and recycled. Waste generation must be reduced by 3.7%. The Tomsk region is currently at the beginning of its path towards creating a circular economy. According to statistics, in 2019, the Tomsk region generated 788,000 tons of waste. Of this, only 262,000 tons of waste, approximately 15%, were recycled. In the vast majority of cases, the life cycle of waste ends at specialized landfills. Disposal of waste by incineration is negatively perceived by the public in connection with a possible threat to human health and environmental pollution. The use of incinerations is minor, only in remote and hard-to-reach areas of the Tomsk region, as well as for the neutralization of medical and biological waste. We see over 200 different types of waste that are disposed of landfills. Moreover, a significant part of such waste can be suitable for further processing. The Tomsk Region Administration identifies a range of waste, disposal of which in the region could see improvement. Solid municipal waste could be separated into paper, glass, metal, and waste, and handed over to recycling plants. Organic matter could be composted, remaining unsorted waste could be used for RDF use. Ash and slag waste from thermal power plants could be used in road construction. Automobile tires could be used in production and construction materials, flooring at playgrounds and sport grounds. Organic waste of cattle farms and urban wastewater treatment plants could be used to produce organic fertilizers or burned to generate energy. Logging and timber processing waste could be used to produce fuel and organic fertilizer. And bottom soil of water bodies could be used for hydraulic engineer work, leveling of territory, and shore reinforcement. The waste sorting complex operating in the Tomsk region fully meets the needs of the city of Severs, Tomsk neighbor city, with a population of about 100,000 people. After sorting the waste, a number of recyclable fractions are separated, which are sent to recycling plants in neighboring regions. In Tomsk, several private companies collect some recyclable types of waste: glass, paper, cardboard, plastic containers, etc. for processing. In order to increase the volume of secondary raw materials sent for processing, negotiations are currently underway with investors on the construction of a waste processing complex with a capacity of 320,000 tons per year, using the mechanism of the concession agreement. Waste disposal in Russia are currently characterized by low investment attractiveness. This hinders full realization of the needs for creating the necessary infrastructure. But the government of the Russian Federation and the Tomsk Region Administration are making the necessary efforts to increase the interest of private business in participating in waste disposal in order to ensure climate nature waste of management. At the same time, a decrease in federal and regional budget revenues during the spread of COVID-19 significantly reduced the opportunities government bodies to participate in co-financing the construction of new waste disposal facilities. The Tomsk region is currently developing the concept of an integrated system for the management of production and consumption based, according to the principle of closed circular economy, including the analysis of promising achievements in the field of waste disposal made by the scientific and educational complex of the Tomsk region. As a result, the following will be identified. List of waste that must be processed without fail. Pool of promising region, promising technology for recycling of the waste generated in the region. List of investment projects recommended for implementation. Measures of state support for waste processing activity. It can be noted that at present, when planning and implementing waste treatment projects, representatives of the business community, state and municipal authorities have a shortage of qualified specialists. On this path, they are studying with a great interest the experience of implementing similar projects in other regions of Russia and countries of the world. We hope that participation in this international online seminar will help us find new solutions for existing problems in the field of waste management. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Maxim. Thank you for your contribution. And some concept of integrated system of production and consumption and the concept of closed cycle is very interesting. Thank you very much. And thank you. And the last speaker. I'm sorry. We have two questions on the Q&A box. The first question is to Bangkok City, and the second question is to Singapore City. Najitip-san and Maylin-san, could you please, if possible, write the answer in the Q&A box. And the last speaker is my colleague, Marino. She's presenting our policy. Please start.
Hello, my name is Marino from Tokyo. Tokyo Metropolitan Government take many kinds of actions for the sustainable recovery from COVID-19, but today I'd like to focus on the plastic issue, especially collaboration with businesses. Facing a climate crisis, we need to switch to decarbonization. Last year, Tokyo Metropolitan Government announced the Zero-Emission Tokyo Strategy for contributing to the world's net zero CO2 emissions by 2050. And finally, last October, national government also pledged to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. To transform our use of plastics into a sustainable approach and achieve net zero CO2, we need an economical system in which the amount of related CO2 emissions is equal to that of absorbed CO2. This figure shows the concept of the closed carbon cycle in which plastics are used with net zero CO2. First of all, we must reduce plastic consumption through reduce and reuse and stop using single-use plastics as before. One of the initiatives to achieve the goal is to create innovations in cooperation with businesses. Since there is a new wave of reduce and reuse businesses in Tokyo, we are trying to support their project. Last year and this year, TMG carried out public offering and selected these business operators which would work on pioneering initiatives with TMG aimed at promoting the sustainable use of plastics, including the reduction of single-use plastics. The first one is the Loop project, which based on reuse and provide products that use returnable containers. Later, I'll talk about the updates of it. The second one was the recycling of used paper cups. For plastic-coated paper cups are treated as prohibited materials in a normal waste paper collection route. We believe sustainable use of biomass is important as well. This year, two models are in preparation. The first one is proposed by Kaufholz, the start from using bottles made of recycled plastic and monomaterial refill film packaging for hygiene products such as hand soap. The used packages are collected to be recycled and made into bottles again. The second project consists of selling bento boxes in reusable containers, charging a small deposit in addition to the bento price and returning the deposit to customers in the form of a coupon that can be used for the next purchase. The containers are then washed and sanitized to be used again. Now I'd like to share the update of Loop project. It is planned to be launched in Tokyo next March, starting from 16 Aeon stores, which is the largest retailer in Japan, and through e-commerce, and will be available to 5,000 users in Tokyo, and soon to expand nationwide. Mentioned in the Mr. Kaufholz presentation, it's already launched in Paris and New York and United Kingdom, and will expand around the world, including Australia and Germany. We are seeing a wave of innovation in reuse business models, and since we'd like to accelerate their movement, we held an online seminar to share reduce and reuse business models. Each company shared their initiatives. For example, Nisha Company is now testing the container sharing service for takeaway foods and drinks at several stores, including Starbucks coffee shop in Okinawa Prefecture. The other example is by Lawson, a major convenience store chain in Japan that operates convenience stores called Natural Lawson. They started to sell laundry liquid in bulk at several convenience stores. And we also learned international movement and the measures taken by foreign companies from Greenpeace Japan. Collaboration with businesses is a key for the transition to circular economy. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Marina. I'm sorry. There was some trouble, so the time is over already. Thank you very much, everybody, for your contributions. I hope this workshop has become meaningful to all the participants. Now, I'd like to ask all participants to answer a brief questionnaire about this workshop. Please click on the link which is displayed on the slide after this workshop. Everybody, thank you for your contribution. Now, Tokyo Metropolitan Government is planning to have a next workshop in February or in March. See you next time again. We are very grateful to all of you, all of the participants. Let me conclude this meeting. See you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and stay safe.
Stay safe.
Stay healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.